Can everybody hear me in the back? Probably not. Laga dein. नहीं ये सब की जरूरत नहीं माइक
Thank you very much for coming, and thank you very much, Ishrat, for the introduction. Unlike most people here and most of the speakers, I don't claim to be an economist. And in fact, I'm a mere practitioner, and not just a normal practitioner, I'm a banker, probably one of the most reviled sectors in the worldwide economy today. So should I be standing up here and be ashamed of what I am and what I do, or should we take this a little bit more rationally? Now, I didn't have any speech written because at the end of the day, I feel that I have said what I've wanted to say several times before in this forum, and will probably get an opportunity to make my comments at the end of the day. But here are a few, in my opinion, defining questions that most of us need to think about. I've written them down as I was sitting over there and listening to Ishrat, but they are just questions. And I think these questions possibly frame what the rest of the day ought to look like. The first statement I make before these questions come up is that financial crises, as we see them today and in the past, happen all the time. You may not think they do, you may think that the one that you are living in is unique, and in fact is the only one, and therefore, for some reason, you guys are the people who are, abandoned by God. But in fact, financial crises happen all the time. 1929 was a big one, 1987 was a big one, there have been many others before that. You simply have to read John Kenneth Galbraith and he'll tell you about all this. Tulips was one. I mean, you can think about any number you want. The question really is, are they manageable given the technology, the financial acumen, and the market conditions of the time at the time? And what is it that people do to try and wend their way out of those financial crises? And are the lessons that you've learned from those actions applicable to the ones that you see today? Those are the questions. And very often people say we don't understand our own history. In my opinion, very often we don't, but when we do, we misuse it because we don't adjust our understanding of the way markets are today to the lessons learned from history. So that's the first thing. The second bit is the 2008 crisis fundamentally different from the ones before? Ishrat brought up what I call contractuals, which are called derivatives, but in our business they're called contractuals because they are contractuals. They're a contract between two parties. They create no real indigenous value add. It's a zero-sum game by and large. But the existence of these things allow you to shift risk in such a way that people behave differently, which ultimately does create growth, in my opinion. Are they fundamentally to blame? Is it that people don't understand them, the buyers, and often, as we have discovered, even from the vaunted J.P. Morgan, the sellers don't understand them well enough? And are they really to blame for this crisis of 2008? Or, my opinion, is something much more fundamental than that, which is hidden by all the noise behind derivatives, which is it creates leverage. Derivatives, all they do is that they allow you to take on risk of different types in different sectors of the economy without putting up equity capital behind it. They create risk. They manage risk, but they create leverage at the end of the day. And that's what people need to understand. And if you understand that fundamentally, you begin to see how every single crisis scales for the size of the economy of the time is really fundamentally different. So that's the first question. Do derivatives matter and have they changed anything? Next question is there a way out of this mess? Are we already coming out of it? Are the actions that we have taken thus far appropriate actions? Have regulators taken the correct actions to help us out? Or is it that they themselves are partially, if not wholly, to blame for the mess that we are in? Where does the cookie crumble? Where does the fault lie? We need to kind of understand that in order to find a way out of this thing. Does the interconnectedness of information, of people flow, capital flow, have an impact? You brought up, Ishrat, the fact that the internet, communications, transport. People say to me that we today are living in the world's most transformational economy. And things are so different today that we've never seen such dramatic change before. Well, in reality, that's complete nonsense. Just imagine my parents. When they grew up, they couldn't talk to anybody. They grew up in Hyderabad in India. Anybody in Mumbai, easily. Telephones were barely existent. Think about the fact that as they grew up, planes came in. They could get on an aeroplane and fly. Think about the concept of flying. You know, what is the internet compared to flying? So transformation happens all the time. The question is the ability to move people, capital, and the ability to know what's going on in Japan virtually instantaneously something that is a good thing, or is it something that has caused people to act in such precipitous and rapid fashion so quickly without due thought and due care that it itself engenders a crisis? So that is another question. Does interconnectedness matter, and is it important? The next question I have is, do regulators understand people? My answer is no. It's just like the guys who do transport for London don't understand drivers because they don't themselves drive. So you get traffic jams because they don't time the lights right, they don't get the circles right. Do regulators always understand how the incentive structure in investment banking, commercial banking, and the real sector, how does that interact? And do people behave the way the regulators think they behave? That is a very, very important question, because if regulators don't understand how people behave, then very often they will put in place rules that they think are good for the economy under circumstances which are nice. Take, for example, the years 2001 to 2008. Nobody questioned regulators then. Nobody questioned bankers then. Bankers were good people. They got paid a ton of money, but they were good, doing good. Nobody questioned anything. There was complacency everywhere. And so when 2008 happened, people were surprised. Well, in my opinion, you shouldn't be, because financial crises are part and parcel of an open free market economy. Do we take financial crises as part and parcel of a free market economy, or do we try and make sure that financial crises never occur? In my opinion, again, this is an opinion, if you find a way to ensure that financial crises never occur, i.e. there's no volatility, and that you attenuate it to a point where there is a little bit of movement, you actually do not have a free market economy. You cannot. And financial crises are part and parcel of it. It's just how you anticipate it and how you manage it. And finally, do we blame ourselves? Does Pakistan or in emerging markets consider itself to be like the Dutch disease, a small player that has absolutely no control over its own destiny, over its economic destiny? Or does it think that it can, through its own policies, weather the storms that occur abroad, outside? In my opinion, most people in Pakistan think that we're different and the international storms don't affect us, and that our economy goes up and down dependent on our own actions. And I think that is fundamentally flawed. We are a much more open economy than India was up until even 7 years ago. We've been more open than virtually anybody in the emerging markets. And these crises do affect us. And our policy response has to take into account what international policies do. And I think today's seminar will highlight some of these issues, and then I'll come back at the end of the day and try and see whether I can put a spin on it in my own way. Thank you very much.